What's going on, guys? This is Miasin. So today I will be covering what I believe are the best side deck cards when you know for a fact that you're going first in game 2 or 3 that will most likely secure yourself a win. So before this video starts, make sure you like and subscribe, check me out on Twitch and Instagram, and now let's get right into it. Alright, so to start things off, I want to say floodgates like Rivalry, Tikaboo, Goes in Match, Summon Limit, and Skill Drain are great cards to side when you know for a fact that you're going to be going first, especially if your opponent is like siding Dark Ruler no more, where he's just going Dark Ruler and then playing into your trap cards because he's so focused on breaking your monster boards that he can't really respect your back row as well. It's indirect protection and it also hurts your opponent. Rivalry can be played in Sun Avalon, Eureka, Goes in Match can be played in a few decks. Tikaboo, it really depends. I guess it could be playable in Tier Laments because you only really need one of each kind of monsters, but it really depends on how you're trying to play and also what your build is. I know dangerous strategies can easily play through Tikaboo, so maybe they could play with Tikaboo. Then after that, I have a pretty interesting kind of engine, which is Banshee and Zombie World. This definitely makes sense because if you have Zombie World on the field, not only again are you hurting your opponent, but also you're indirectly protecting yourself from Sphere Mode. Yes, because under Zombie World, neither player can tribute summon except for zombie monsters, and Sphere Mode just happens to be a tribute summon. It's not like Lava Golem, technically protecting yourself while also making it so that, you know, decks like Dragon Link or Cyber's decks will completely get demolished. After that, I have a set of cards that you don't necessarily need to draw in order to have some form of utility, and those would be Mischief of the Gnomes, Galaxy Cyclone, as well as Fusion Substitute. So these cards, you actually want to mill them, not really draw them, because you can use their graveyard effect either to hurt your opponent or protect yourself from Mystic Mine by being able to trigger a field spell with a Fusion Substitute, draw a card, destroy the Mystic Mine, or with the Galaxy Cyclone, you straight up banish it and destroy a face-up spell or trap on the field. After that, I have another card that I already covered, and I think it's really cool, and that would be Mass Change Second. So again, it follows the same logic as the Floodgates. If you get hit by Dark Ruler, you still have Mass Change Second to summon Dark Law after getting hit by Dark Ruler, and if you're targeting, let's say, whatever, a Tier Laments monster, it's going to be sending it as a part of the effect, so it will trigger the Tier Laments monster, and that will allow you to fuse another time. So imagine you got Dark Rulered, and you still have Dark Law, which is, you know, active, on top of having another fusion monster on the field. Ridiculous, right? Next up is a card that not a lot of people can play because it might hurt you, but that would be Different Dimension Ground. It has a lingering effect that makes it so that both players' monsters will not be hitting the graveyard this turn, but rather will get banished. Kind of like a temporary D-shifter. Depending on the deck that you're playing, this might be an insta-win, especially if you're using this against, let's say, Tier Laments. Then after that, we have two cards that basically fulfill kind of the same role, but at the same time, you can argue that one of them is better, but worse at the same time, and that would be the Sanctum and Artifact Scythe package, as well as D-Barrier. So Sanctum covers absolutely everything from the extra deck, so even Link monsters, whereas D-Barrier doesn't cover Link monsters, however, it covers Pendulums and Rituals, which could, again, be a little better or worse. However, with Sanctum, you do have to play the brick of Artifact Scythe, and that could suck a bit. The cool thing about those two cards is that they are lingering, so again, even if you get hit by Dark Ruler, you can still flip those cards and your opponent still cannot play. Alright, now we get into the disgusting category. These cards are very interesting. There are Solemn Warning and Solemn Judgment. Let me explain why. Solemn Warning can basically be a turn skipper against Splight because if you use it on their normal summon or even on their Splight starter, they might just not be able to extend at all because they really do need a monster on the field to start summoning their Splight monsters, where Strike might not be the best because if they go normal summon a monster, no effect, they can still special summon other monsters, and your Strike will kind of trade one for one, where Solemn Warning can be a straight up turn skipper. Solemn Judgment does the same thing Solemn Warning does. The only difference is that you can also negate all kinds of spells and traps. So that could be very nice because you can protect yourself from Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, etc. And another cool thing that Solemn Judgment can do that a lot of people don't necessarily know is that you can Judgment your own Link summon so that your only monster goes to the grave, and therefore you will have no monsters on the field, so Mystic Mine will die on the end phase. Another card that does a relatively similar role would be Deck Devastation Virus. However, this card has a completely different application, and again, I'm going to repeat myself 10 billion times. This is another way to deal with Dark Ruler. You get hit by Dark Ruler, your opponent summons, let's say, 1 or 2 monsters, and then you go deck dev, tribute, let's say, a Tier Laments monster. Your opponent has to say bye-bye to every single freaking Splight monster they have, every hand trap. If they're playing, let's say, Exorcister, they have to give up on everything except Malfa. If they're playing Mathmech, they literally lose everything. Deck dev is absurd. And again, if you only have one dark monster on the field, you go deck dev, tribute that only monster, you have no monsters on the field, and Mystic Mine will die on the end phase. So it's really nice when your side deck card hurts your opponent while also protecting you from Mystic Mine if you use it correctly. Next up will be Anti-Spell Fragrance, which is a card that not only covers your opponent's engine cards, so all the spell cards, but also the board-breaking cards, the really nasty ones. They have a tendency to be spell cards. So Dark Ruler, Mystic Mine, Triple Tactic Talents, Ultimate Slayer, blah blah blah. All those cards are useless against Anti-Spell Fragrance, and if you don't really have a lot of quick play spell cards, you might be in a very, very bad mood when Anti-Spell gets flipped on you. And last but definitely not least is one of the cards that might give you the most amount of control in a game, and that would be Appointer of the Red Lotus. So one interesting thing about Appointer is that we typically only really saw that card being played in like tier 0-esque formats where the top decks are so ridiculously consistent and powerful that they can afford to only make their opponent lose one card temporarily. In control decks, Appointer of the Red Lotus is not good because, again, your opponent will get back the card, and if you brick, well, better believe that you will lose eventually. So you really have to be playing such an aggressive deck that you can afford that luxury, and I believe that Splight and Tearlaments can abuse the Appointer of the Red Lotus ridiculously well. In order to even use Appointer of the Red Lotus, you always need at least one card in your hand, so make sure that you are fully aware of that, because otherwise it's going to be dead. But yeah, the hand knowledge is absurd. You can make your opponent either lose their board breaking cards, or their starters, or, you know, let's say their Sphere Mode or Lava Golem, because Solemn Judgment doesn't really deal with those cards. You know, they already tributed your monster, so you're not really trying to Judgment a Sphere Mode. That would be stupid. Whereas Appointer, picking one of those cards is really nice, and you can time your interruptions better if you know what they have in their hand. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my top best going first side deck cards. Let me know what you guys actually are utilizing in order to destroy the meta right now. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.